You know, the most striking truth about manufactured credibility is that your brain is biologically programmed to value certainty over accuracy. We like to think that we trust people because they've got the evidence, right? But in these high-pressure situations, our own biological drive for leadership and decisiveness gets turned against us. A loud voice and a steady gaze become this sort of psychological backdoor, and it just bypasses all of our logical skepticism. Yeah, this quote, it just gets right to the very heart of what we're digging into here. It describes what the source material calls performative authority. That's the moment your completely natural desire for a clear, simple answer gets turned into the very thing that traps you. It's a fascinating and, let's be honest, a kind of unsettling idea. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how it all works. So, let's start with this question. Just let it sit there for a second. Have you ever been in a meeting or maybe a conversation with a friend where you knew the facts, you had the data, you had the receipts, but the sheer, overwhelming confidence of the other person just made you doubt yourself, made you kind of shrink and go quiet? Well, it's an incredibly common experience, and it's not a personal failure. It's a feature of our brain's wiring being expertly manipulated. To really understand this whole thing, we first have to look at the biological system that's being targeted. This isn't just about good persuasion. It's about a pre-existing shortcut in our brains, a kind of secret entry point that this performative authority uses to get right past our defenses. Okay, this right here is the key, the confidence heuristic. Now, a heuristic is just a fancy word for a mental shortcut our brain uses to make quick judgments. And this specific one, it's a doozy. In high-pressure moments, our brain doesn't have time to do a deep dive fact check. So it looks for proxies, stand-ins for confidence. And what are the easiest ones to spot? A steady gaze, a loud voice, a simple declarative statement. Our brain mistakenly tags that performance of confidence as actual expertise. It's a well-documented cognitive shift, a backdoor that bypasses your logic right when you need it most. And this dynamic, gosh, it plays out everywhere. Think about that charismatic corporate leader whose grand vision and unshakable confidence just mesmerizes the whole boardroom, even while the company's numbers are tanking. Or what about the alpha personality in a friend group, the one who just dictates what's real through sheer volume and certainty? It even happens in our closest relationships, where one partner might take on this permanent expert role, managing the other by always being the one who knows best. In every single one of these cases, performance is standing in for actual proof. Okay, so we've got the biological backdoor that's the confidence heuristic. But how does it get opened so consistently, so easily? Well, next we're going to explore what's called the system of deference, the process that actually trains us to hand over the keys to our own judgment. This is the core concept right here, epistemic deference. Now, epistemic just means anything related to knowledge or how we know what we know. So this is the exact moment we stop being a sovereign individual and become what the source material calls a managed subject. And that is a huge shift. You stop asking, is this true? And you start asking, what does the authority figure say is true? Your main goal changes from checking the facts to just seeking out their certainty to calm your own anxiety. Now, what's so interesting about this slide is how clearly it lays out that change in your behavior. Over on the left, you've got active auditing. This is our healthy default state of skepticism. You ask for proof, you check the receipts, right? You trust data. But under the influence of this manufactured credibility, you slide over to the right, to passive acceptance. Instead of demanding proof, you're just looking for their certainty. Instead of checking the receipts, you drop the issue just to kind of stay in the aura of their confidence. You stop trusting data and you start trusting the performance. So what is it that pulls us into this system? Well, it often comes down to two internal beliefs. First, there's the authority hook. That's that little voice inside your head that goes, wow, they are so confident. No way anyone would be this bold if they were just making it up. We mistake their boldness for a guarantee of truth. And the second one is cognitive diminution. This is a reported physical and mental feeling where when you're around this person, you actually start to feel smaller, less intelligent, less capable than they are. These two hooks work together perfectly to convince you to just surrender your own judgment. Okay, so we understand the vulnerability and we understand the system of deference. Now let's look at the specific observable tactics that are used to build this social fortress around your own decision-making. This isn't just random charisma, it's a deliberate architecture. In this architecture, it rests on three main pillars. First, the authority aesthetic. That's all about looking the part. Second, the nuance attack, which is about shutting down any complexity. And third, the social proof loop, which is basically using your own silence against you. So let's break each one down. Step one is all about the surface. The controller adopts the right posture, the right tone of voice, the vocabulary, the whole aesthetic of authority. And this is really a test. It's to see how easily your brain's shortcut for leadership kicks in. The goal is to make you feel a sense of relief, you know? You think, oh, thank goodness, someone's in charge. Someone knows what they're doing. I can just relax and follow their lead. They haven't proven anything yet. They're just performing it so well that you feel like you should let them take charge without asking for any credentials. So once that aesthetic is in place, the controller moves on to step 2, the nuance attack. This is a really crucial move. Let's say you bring up a valid, complex point. Instead of engaging with it, they just dismiss it with what the source calls a linguistic hammer. A phrase like, "It's actually very simple," or "You're getting lost in the weeds," or the all-time classic, "You're just overthinking it." This brilliantly flips the entire conversation. It's no longer about who's right, it's about who's confused. And this tactic triggers a feeling of social shame, so you start working harder to agree with them than to just stand your ground and be right.
And that leads directly to the final piece of the trap, the social proof loop. After that nuance attack, you probably go quiet, right? You want to avoid conflict, you don't want to look foolish. Well, the controller then takes your silence, or the silence of the whole group, and they frame it as agreement, as proof. They'll say something like, "See, everyone gets it. We're all on the same page here." Your deference, which was triggered by their tone, is now being used as evidence to make their authority even stronger. It creates this self-fueling cycle, and you are totally locked in. So we've seen the trap's architecture. But for it to actually work, we have to willingly step into it. So why do we? This next part explores our own biases and fears that make these tactics so incredibly effective.
This slide just captures the push and pull dynamic perfectly. On one side, the controller's goal is what you might call audit-free immunity. They want to be able to make claims and direct people without ever being questioned. And on our side, our vulnerability is often a deep-seated fear of social friction. In a lot of situations, our brains are just wired to value harmony and getting along way more than we value being accurate. We rather accept a comfortable lie than get into the uncomfortable conflict of demanding the truth. And this mismatch in goals, well, that's the engine that drives the whole thing. And there's another biological factor at play here, the fluency heuristic. This one is a little different from the confidence heuristic, but it works right alongside it. Fluency is all about how easily our brain processes information. And the simple fact is, our brains find it much easier to process and therefore to believe things that are stated simply, confidently, and over again. A complex, nuanced truth is hard work for the brain. A simple, bold lie is easy. The crucial thing to get here is that when you find yourself swayed by this stuff, it isn't some kind of personal failing. It's a feature of how our brains work that's being expertly exploited.
Okay, we've deconstructed the trap, we know how it works, so how do we get out? This final section is all about the practical tools for defense, how we reclaim our cognitive autonomy and shift from that passive acceptance back to active auditing.
Our first tool for defense is the certainty to data audit. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful mental exercise. In one column, you just note the confident claim, the tone. Trust me, I always deliver. Then in the other column, you dispassionately list the verifiable evidence, the track record. Project completion rate is 45%. The whole goal here is to consciously force a separation between the performance and the actual competence. It makes your brain switch out of that shortcut mode and re-engage its analytical, fact-checking systems.
The second tool is more of a mindset shift. It's about developing what the source calls nuance reclaimed awareness. This just means making a conscious, intentional choice to retrain your brain's value system. You start to see the person who says, I'm not sure, let me check the data, as more credible than the person who says, this is always how it's done. You're choosing to interrupt that neurochemical cycle of deference before it can take hold. You're basically teaching yourself that true expertise is often quiet, questioning, and even a little humble. We've journeyed through the whole trap, and we've looked at the tools for reclaiming our own judgment. So let's bring it all together for the final, crucial takeaway.
If you remember just one thing from this entire explainer, please let it be this. Confidence is a performance. Competence is a track record. One is an aesthetic, it's an act. The other is a verifiable history of results. The entire machine of manufactured credibility is designed to make you confuse the two. Your defense is to just remember that they are not the same thing. Always check the receipts.
And this all brings us to a really fundamental truth. Your mind, your perception, your ability to reason, that's your private territory. It's the one space that is truly 100% yours. The whole cycle of manufactured credibility gets broken the moment you realize that you don't have to feel smart to be right, and that nobody else's volume should ever become a cage for your own autonomy.
And so, we end with this question. If your mind is a private territory, who are you allowing to build there? Who gets to lay the foundations of your beliefs? Is it the person with the loudest voice and the most confident performance? Or is it the one with the quiet data and the verifiable track record? Ultimately, that choice is yours.